The session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Blessed good morning to everyone after a long night, day yesterday, 13-hour day. Hopefully it'll be easier today, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to resume consideration of our budget and take up the budget of the Judiciary, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Motion is approved.
Mr. President, we're
We
going to
consider
discuss...
the budget of the Judiciary.
Mr. President, we'll be discussing the budget of the Supreme Court of the Philippines and the lower courts, the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, the Sandigan Bayan, the Court of Appeals, and Court of Tax Appeals. May we recognize the sponsor, Senator Sani Angara, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Sani Angara, Chairman of the Committee on Finance, sponsor of the budget of the Judiciary, is recognized. Before we allow you to speak, we'd like to welcome the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court here in the premises. He has been representing the Judiciary every year, so I did not expect him to be here because he is already the Chief Justice now. But he's still here. So congratulations and arriba letran, Chief Justice.
I was waiting for that, Mr. President. I was waiting for the arriba letran. Congratulations. I think I went to the wrong law school, Your Honor. Mr. President, the budget for the Judiciary is 40,171,621,000, Your Honor, for the record.
All right.
Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate the budget of the Judiciary. I move that the budget of the Supreme Court of the Philippines and the lower courts, Presidential Electoral Tribunal, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Appeals, and Court of Tax Appeals be deemed submitted and approved. I so move, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, the budget, the entire budget of the Judiciary is hereby deemed submitted.
Yes, for
Salamat
1
po,
minute
Majority Leader.
suspension.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, for 1
Thank
minute
you.
suspension.
Senate session suspended.
Oh, Judiciary.
I thought Senator Lapid is going to interpolate. Sabi ni Ping. No, he's in the bathroom. All right. Session resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we're going to take up another co-important or quite an important body in our government, from our government agencies, no other than the Commission on Audit. I move that we take up the budget of the Commission on Audit, Mr. President.
Any objection? The chair hears none. Budget of the Commission on Audit, consideration is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize sponsor, Senator Angara.
Senator Sani Angara, Chairman of the Committee on Finance, is recognized to sponsor the budget of the Commission on Audit.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Dear colleagues, the recommended budget for the Commission on Audit, or COA, is for 2020 is 12,463,539,000 for the record, Mr. President.
Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate the budget of the Commission on Audit. I move that the budget of the Commission on Audit be deemed submitted and approved. I so move, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, the budget of the Commission on Audit is hereby deemed submitted.
I ask for a 1-minute suspension.
Session suspended.
sa anak ko, ganyan sa anak ko. Savior. Ang cute naman. Parang sa anak mo ba yan, the youngest? Hindi mo ako kay Alfonso?
Session is resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. While we are awaiting the arrival of our distinguished colleague, Senator Gatchalian, who I'm usually surprised, he's always early because he wakes up at 6 a.m. and
It was his anniversary last night.
overtime pala siya. Okay, Mr. President. Therefore, I move that for the meantime, to suspend the deliberations on the budget so that we can take up other matters, Mr. President. I move to suspend the consideration of the budget for a short time.
Hearing no objection, consideration of the budget is suspended in the meantime.
Mr. President, I move for the additional reference of business.
The Secretary will proceed with the fifth additional reference of business.
Fifth additional reference of business, messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 18 November 2019, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 5477 entitled An Act Establishing Malasakit Centers in all Department of Health DOH hospitals in the country and in the Philippine General Hospital PGH, providing funds therefore and for other purposes.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
House number 5306, an act separating the sitio of Ladol from Barangay Poblacion in the municipality of Alabel, province of Sarangani, and constituting it into distinct and independent barangay to be known as Barangay Ladol.
Referred to the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 18 November 2019, it adopted Senate number 1122 as an amendment to House number 4611 entitled An Act Designating the third Sunday of November every year as a National Day of Remembrance for Road Crash Victims, Survivors, and their families, ensuring its meaningful observance.
To the Archives.
Committee report number 23, submitted by the Committee on Finance on House number 5437, introduced by Representative Legarda et al., entitled An Act Extending the Availability of the 2019 Appropriations for Maintenance and Other Operating Expenses and Capital Outlays to December 31, 2020, amending for the purpose Section 65, the General Provisions of Republic Act number 11260, the General Appropriations Act of Fiscal Year 2019, recommending its approval without amendment, taking into consideration Senate number 1153, Senate Joint Resolution number 6 and 7, and House Joint Resolution number 19, sponsor Senator Angara.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to transfer House Bill number 5437 under Committee Report number 23 from the calendar of ordinary business to special orders. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, may you ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
Title will read the title of the measure.
House number 5437, an act extending the availability of the 2019 appropriations for maintenance and other operating expenses and capital outlays to December 31, 2020, amending for the purpose Section 65, the General Provisions of Republic Act number 11260, the General Appropriations Act of Fiscal Year 2019.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Sonny Angara, the Chair of the Committee on Finance, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Sonny Angara is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Good morning, dear colleagues. In sponsoring this bill, we seek to extend the validity and availability of 2019 appropriations for maintenance and other operating expenses, or MOOE, and capital outlay until December 31, 2020. Earlier, Mr. President, we sponsored a similar resolution, but because of the recent Supreme Court Ang-Nars ruling, we decided in consultation with the leadership to file a bill instead to avoid any possible legal challenge regarding the issue of a joint resolution's legal effectivity. And we thank Senator Drilon for pointing out that ruling, the very new ruling to us. Mr. President, we do this because under Republic Act 11260, or the 2019 General Appropriations Act, and Executive Order number 91 on the implementation of the cash budgeting system, all appropriations that were not released, obligated, or paid by the end of December 31, 2019 shall lapse and revert back to the National Treasury. These funds could go a long way in terms of paving more roads and bridges, setting up more hospitals and barangay health units, and providing the necessary social services to our people. In other words, Mr. President, without the approval of this measure, precious funds might not be spent and our people will experience even more delays in the projects and social services promised to them. Let us consider the Department of Education. They have informed us that without the extension of the 29 GAA's validity, the line agency could lose up to 16 billion of its programmed funds, as it will be forced to return such money to the National Treasury. Non-extension of the budget's validity would have the following impact. Up to 2,900 classrooms would not be repaired and rehabilitated as scheduled. 590 schools will remain without electricity. Up to 57 Gabaldon school buildings would not be restored. Up to 11,677,000 activity sheets and A&E modules for kindergarten and grade 1 students would not be printed and delivered. Similar story could unfold for the Department of Health, or DOH, especially for its Health Facilities Enhancement Program, or HFEP, if we do not extend the validity of the 2019 General Appropriations Act. For 2019, the DOH was appropriated 15.86 billion for its HFEP. Under the program, some 2,800 health facilities would have received funding for infrastructure projects, medical equipment projects, motor vehicles, among others. However, almost all of these exceeding 3,000 projects are still in the procurement stage, mainly because of the delay in the release of the GAA earlier this year. In fact, only 1.9 billion approximately of the DOH's over 14 billion budget allotment for HFEP has been obligated, or approximately 13%. Mr. President, worse still is that only 130 million has actually been disbursed, representing only 0.8% of total appropriations. Not even 1% of the people's budget for health facilities has been spent. If this measure is not approved, that means the DOH would have to wait for 2021 before they can expect some movement on the same projects originally intended for 2019. For many sick and ill Filipinos, that waiting time could be too long. Many other agencies would be able to implement their projects and provide their services to the people if the budget's validity is extended. For the DSWD, this would mean the ability to push through with its supplementary feeding program. For the CHED and the state colleges and universities, the countries, they will be able to use the remaining 8 billion in their budget to pay for the second semester billing under the UACTEA, or the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Law, which Congress passed. And the Department of Labor, the DOLE, would be able to place even more students in on-the-job training under its government internship program, to help workers beset with misfortune under its Tulong Panghanap Buhay program, and continue with its adjustment measures program to provide displaced higher education personnel assistance. This extension would also greatly benefit all the agencies focused on the relief effort in the wake of the recent multiple earthquakes in Mindanao. Specifically, we would be ensuring the availability of up to 12 billion, over 12 billion, coming from the Calamity Fund and the different quick response funds lodged with the various agencies. In short, Mr. President, through this measure, we would be extending a big helping hand to the executive branch, which has had to operate during the first few months of this year on a reenacted budget, and the rest under pressure to spend up to 3.687 trillion of total available appropriations in a span of only 7 to 8 months, approximately, amidst an election ban on government projects this year, Mr. President. The Senate is not oblivious to the travails of the executive branch, and we must help them. We must act to see to it that the national budget we had approved for 2019 benefits our people in terms of better services and more efficient public spending. My predecessors at the Finance Committee, Senators Escudero and Legarda, also sponsored in 2013 and 2018 respectively, and we passed similar measures calling for extensions in the budget validity. I hope we act on this measure at the soonest, and for the information of the body, the House of Representatives has already passed this on third reading. Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Joel, our Vice Chair of the committee, would like to be a co-author of this bill, Mr. President. Thank you.
Co-sponsor, this
Mr.
is
President,
a House bill, so he's a co-sponsor.
may I move that we make all members co-sponsors of the measure with the permission of our chairman, Mr. President.
All right, what does the sponsor say?
Yes, it would be an honor, Mr. President.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. President. Mr. President, what is the pleasure? Do you want to pass this now?
It's up to the members. I yield to the members, Your Honor. Yes.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Recto to just ask one question, interpolate the measure.
Senator Ralph Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just few clarifications very briefly. I support the measure, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Honor.
My question only is in relation to, are we also extending the validity of the PS part of the budget?
No, Your Honor.
So at the appropriate time, I can introduce such an amendment that we are not extending the PS part.
I think the
Yeah, I have it
the
ready.
measure specifies that it's only for MOE and capital outlay, Your Honor.
From what I read yesterday, it says all appropriations. It doesn't specify, it's just MOE or capital outlay.
Well, we'll accept that because to make it more specific, Your Honor.
Correct, correct. And-
Ahead of time, we'll definitely accept it, Your Honor.
Is it not all appropriations is already specific? Pag sinabing all appropriations, di lahat.
Precisely the point, and that's why we're recommending that we are not including PS. Because that is not the
You're excluding.
excluding PS, correct? Okay?
We'll accept it, Your Honor. I think it's very, to make it more specific and in line with it. It's actually in the title, but it's not, for some reason, it's not in the body.
It's not in the body, correct, okay. Another item. Are we also extending the validity of unprogrammed appropriations?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
We are. So there will be a double appropriation for next year,
Yes, Your Honor.
okay? And what would that appropriation be? If today it's 215 billion, magkano yung ine-extend natin?
We'll get the figure, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go to your next question while
Yes,
we're,
yes,
while we're
no
waiting,
problem. Yes,
while
thank
we
you.
retrieve the information, Your Honor?
Yes. Are we also extending, for example, miscellaneous personnel benefits fund under the MOE? Ano? MPBF is PS, no?
MPBF, so it's extended. It's, I was told that's an item that qualifies under personal services or PS, Your Honor. So the intention is not to extend that.
Okay. What about yung gratuity, pension and gratuity fund?
If the PS component is not extended, then that will not be extended,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Calamity fund.
That's MOE and capital outlay, so it will be extended, Your Honor.
Contingent fund, MOE,
Extended, Your Honor.
extended.
Yes, Your Honor.
1 minute suspension, Mr. President. With the permission of the body.
Session suspended.
Yeah.
You ready?
Ready, Mr. President?
Session resumed.
Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to ask these clarifications with the chairman, and I'm clarified with the intent of the measure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Majority Leader. What is the pleasure of the
Thank you,
body?
Mr. President. Mr. President,
Thank you, Senator Recto, for the suggestions, Your Honor.
let's move, Mr. President, forward, and since it's a very, very important measure, and we already passed actually the resolution on this joint resolution. So we just, to comply with the Supreme Court ruling, we filed it as a bill. And therefore, with that, I move to close the period of interpellation. I so move, Mr.
Hearing
President.
no objection, the period of interpellation is closed.
Mr. President, I move to open the period of amendments.
Period of amendments is open.
May I recognize the chairman and our colleagues who want to.
Senator
Propose
Ralph Recto. President Pro Tem, any amendments? There are no amendments.
No amendments, Sunny? No amendments. Ralph, no amendments?
They clarified the points.
Sunny, no amendments?
Mr. President, just may we be allowed or given the authority to amend the title subject to style to reflect the body, Your Honor?
Subject to style.
Yes, subject to style, Your
All
Honor.
right.
Okay.
No
No objections from the body, Mr. President, from
All
our
right.
colleagues.
Therefore, you,
With that,
just
Mr.
to reflect
President,
the body, all right.
with that, Mr. President, we close the period of amendments.
Hearing no objection, period of amendments closed.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading the measure, Mr. President.
House Bill 5437.
That's
Hearing no
correct.
objection. The House Bill 5437 is approved on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
Consideration of the measure suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we take, where we continue the consideration of the budget, Mr. President.
Any objections? Hearing none, consideration of the budget is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we take up the budget of the Judiciary. The
Judiciary.
Department of Justice.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the budget of the Department of Justice is in order.
Thank you, Mr. President. The parliamentary status, before we recognize the Department of Justice, the parliamentary status, we were supposed to take up the Department of Transportation as our commitment to the Secretary Tugade, for waiting the whole day yesterday. Fortunately, the chairman of the subcommittee is not here yet, so we'll move
Unfortunately,
towards the Department of Justice. Just for explanation.
Let's give him some allowance, Your Honor. It was his anniversary last night.
Overtime nga po siya,
The
Mr. President.
sponsors' anniversary last night?
Yes, Your Honor.
With who? Because the other week, he also had an anniversary with somebody else.
That's revealing too much, Mr. President.
Yes, too much information. But Mr. President, yes, he was on overtime mode yesterday.
All right.
So, Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Angara.
Senator Sani Angara is
Sponsor.
recognized to sponsor the budget of the Department of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Your Honors. The budget of the Department of Justice and the attached agencies is 22,105,000. For the Office of the Secretary, it's 6,804 million, approximately. For the Bureau of Corrections, it's 4,244 million, rounded off. Bureau of Immigration, it's 1,569 million, rounded off. For the Land Registration Authority, or LRA, it's 1,043 million, rounded off. NBI, 1,811 million, rounded off. Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, or OGCC, 185 million, rounded off. Office of the Solicitor General, 1,061 million, rounded off. Parole and Probation Administration is 946 million, rounded off. The PCGG, or Presidential Commission on Good Government, is 152 million, rounded off. The Public Attorney's Office is 4,203 million, rounded off, Mr. President. We're ready to accept questions, Your Honor.
The Minority Leader is recognized. Senator Frank Drilon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman sponsor yield the floor to a few questions?
Yes, Your Honor. I hope I will be able to answer the questions from the former secretary of the department.
That's right, Mr. President. I have to take the floor, not for anything, but in support of the budget.
Please be kind, Your Honor. Please be kind.
Yes, as I said, in support of the committee report on the budget.
Thank
First
you,
of
Your Honor.
all,
Thank
let me place on record my respect for the Secretary of Justice. I know how difficult is his job. He is a political officer. He is a political appointee, I'm sorry. He is a political appointee who has to uphold the rule of law and issue opinions in accordance with his reading of the law. That is not a very easy job, and we place of record the respect that we accord the incumbent Secretary of Justice, and may his work he continue to deliver his mandate in the manner that he has done in the past several years. One question that I have, Mr. President, I just came from my home province of Iloilo, and in the local news is the complaint of our provincial prosecutor of the vacancies that has been the vacancies in the provincial prosecutor's office. And this has been the situation for quite some time. I am therefore constrained to ask the secretary, the sponsor, what is the situation insofar as the vacancies in the National Prosecution Service is concerned?
Well, we'll get the exact data, Your Honor, but the Secretary tells me there's a lot of vacancies, and they've actually made there are a lot of pending recommendations at the Office of the President, Your Honor. Hundreds of recommendations to fill positions, awaiting the President's signature, Your Honor.
May we know a more indicative number than simply hundreds?
Yeah. Well, specific to Iloilo, Your Honor, they said that they gave 5 positions to the province, and they're awaiting the appointment of 3 Iloilo City prosecutors, Your Honor.
I am not talking only about the province and city of Iloilo. I am citing that only as an example of why we raise this question, and we suspect that the vacancies are all over the Philippines, which affects our ability to prosecute cases.
I have the data, Your Honor, and
Yes,
if you
please.
we will allow me to
Yes.
state it. The authorized positions or number of prosecutors or number of prosecution
Authorized
staff
positions, yeah.
is 3,620. 3,620. The positions which are filled is 2,268. 2,268. And the unfilled is 1,352. 1,352.
1,352
Yes, Your Honor.
vacancies.
So that's a vacancy rate of 37%, Your Honor.
How much?
37%.
37%.
One-third, over one-third, Your Honor.
1/3 of the plantilla positions or authorized positions are vacant. You know, people complain of delay in the administration of justice. If you have 37% of your National Prosecution Service personnel unfilled and vacant, I can imagine the delay in the prosecution of cases, because the court cannot proceed with the case, with the trial, unless the prosecutor is there, since the prosecutor has full control over the proceedings. So 37% is a horrible number, if I may say. And can the good secretary, through the Sponsor, give us an indication of how long these vacancies have been there? Just a ballpark figure, a month, 2 months, 2 years, whatever. But they were typical vacancy that they see. Typical length of the vacancy.
Since 2016, Your Honor, marami na ho. But for the record, the Secretary has submitted 1,100 positions to be filled, Your Honor, to the OP.
1,100 recommendees
Yes, Your Honor.
are pending before the office of the President?
The pending, 633, Your Honor.
Sorry?
Those pending appointment with the OP is 633, Your Honor.
632 are pending. Out of the 1,352 that are vacant, there are only 632 pending recommendations.
That's correct, Your Honor.
What happens to the other half?
Hindi, dito sa 1,300 vacancies. You're going to submit additional to fill up the 1,000. Kasi kung may 633 ka na recommend, you also have 600 plus na vacant recommended. What's your plan? Maybe you're processing the... They're processing them, Your Honor. They're awaiting applications and going through the process of filling up these positions, Your Honor.
A little bit disturbing, Mr. President. All of these positions are budgeted positions. They have funds.
Yes, Your Honor.
What do we intend to do, Mr. Sponsor, to hasten the appointment of these to these vacancies? This is alarming. We all complain about delay in the administration of justice, and usually this refers to criminal cases. And let me put on record that it is especially unfair if it involves indigents, because they, in the meantime, that they cannot, they have no resources to post bail. They are detained, and and their cases remain pending because there is no prosecutor. Can we have an idea of, firstly, can we not prod the office of the President to appoint the 632?
I think we can, Your Honor. Especially the minority leader used to work with the little president, Your Honor. So I'm sure that's the office that facilitates it, Your Honor.
Is the office of, is the executive secretary a friend of the secretary, Mr. President?
They are well acquainted, Your Honor.
No, I'm just putting it lightly, but this is a serious matter.
The secretary gives his assurances that he is following it up also, Your Honor.
Yes, maybe through this hearing, we will call on the office of the executive secretary to place these appointments on top of the file of action papers for the President. Hindi naman po nire-review ito sa Malacanang eh. And precisely, this is already the recommendation of the Secretary of Justice, and therefore should be given due course, as we assume that this is without any political color. So I would, through this hearing, I would make a plea to Secretary Medialdea to act immediately on the 632 pending applications, and on the Secretary to process the remaining 720 positions to be filled up. Incidentally, just for the record, you know, when we were Secretary of Justice, we can recall the political pressure placed on us for politicians, proteges, to be appointed either as head of office or as ranking prosecutors in any field office. Natural po yan sa aming mga politiko, hingiin sa Secretary of Justice. Ipasok si ganito, ipasok si ganyan, at alam mo na, pagdating ng panahon, mayroon silang asset doon in the prosecutor's office. During my time in prison, conscious of this, we had an entrance examination in the National Prosecution Service. We required them to pass a written exam and an interview by the panel. That way, I was able to fend off the pressures. I do not know if it was effective, but I have not heard a complaint during my time. And on the other hand, some prosecutors would approach me, sir, you do not know me, you did not recommend me, but I got the position. So may I know at this stage, given the fact that you have 720 vacancies with 632 pending in Malacanang, what is the process today of filling up these positions?
Well, the secretary tells me there's no written exam as during your time, as you narrated. But they do the interviews. They ask searching or probing questions, Your Honor. There is a board that screens the nominees, but they'll consider your idea, Your Honor.
So there is a board of
It's called the
equivalent
promotions.
to a
Yes.
mini JBC.
Parang
if I may
promotions
say.
and
Parang
selection
ganon,
board,
ah.
Your Honor.
So
There's a promotions and selection board, Your Honor.
it's a promotion and selection board. I would encourage the secretary to continue this because the appointments to the National Prosecution Service are very crucial and very sensitive. In your hands of the prosecutors would be the liberty of our countrymen facing charges. So I would encourage the secretary.
Honor.
And maybe we would request the secretary to submit to the chair of the committee, Finance Committee, an updated report before within the end of the month as to the progress that we can see in filling up of these positions. All right.
We can ask them to do that, Your Honor.
Yes, please. Furnish us a copy, please. Now, you said that your authorized position is 3,620. Is this equivalent to the standard set by law? If I recall correctly, 2 prosecutors for every regional trial court. Can you put on the record what is the number of prosecutors required to be to be manning the prosecution service in the courts of law? I think there is a law here, and it requires a certain minimum. If I'm not mistaken, 2 prosecutors per RTC branch. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, but that's how I recall it.
Yes, the gentleman is correct, Your Honor. The minority leader is correct. Under the National Prosecution Service Act of 2010, there is a prescribed ratio, and it is for regional trial courts, there are 2 prosecutors, and for the MTCs, it's 1 prosecutor, Your Honor. And we're just checking now on the data if we apply it to our current court system, Your
That's
Honor.
right. We would like to know, given this formula, how many positions should there be in the National Prosecution Service? How many RTCs
Yeah.
are there? We multiply it by 2. How many MTCs are there? That's the number of prosecutors that would be needed.
The Secretary informs us that 3,620, which is the base number we've been discussing, Your Honor, is the correct number with respect to the ratios.
We're certain about that. How many RTCs do we have, Mr. Sponsor? And how many MTCs do we have? We want to test that statement.
We'll recall the judiciary, Your Honor, so
Yes, yes.
they can give us the. I'm just kidding.
Now, what we're just putting on the record is really the inadequacies of the National Prosecution Service, not because of anything, but because of lack of personnel, and the lack of personnel results from the failure to act on the recommendations of the Secretary insofar as the positions, existing positions that are vacant. And we want now to know whether or not the authorized positions are, as we suspect, is more or is less than what the law requires. If somebody can tell us how many RTCs are there,
Your Honor, can we get back to you on that?
I'll say, okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We're just retrieving the data. I think the judiciary has the more accurate figures.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Just give us the data on that.
Yes, Your Honor. We
hopefully,
pledge that, Your Honor.
hopefully quickly. That's not difficult to do.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, on the Bureau of Corrections, the Secretary and the entire nation was witness to the unraveling of either the incompetence or the corruption in the Bureau of Corrections that was unearthed in the Blue Ribbon hearings in the Senate. We had to, quote, suffer, close quote, on the very long proceedings in the Blue Ribbon Committee hearings, but it produced results.
Yes, Your Honor.
May inform of recommendations in the course of the hearing. Of course, the report is not yet out, but having heard from the testimonies of the various witnesses in the Blue Ribbon hearing, what has this department done in order to correct what obviously are malpractices, either because of negligence or because of corruption in the Bureau of Correction? And I'm not talking about the present leadership in the Bureau, just to be sure. It is the previous leadership where all of these things happen. So again, I go back to the question. May we have on record the reforms that were undertaken by the good Secretary insofar as this is concerned.
Your Honor, they've already issued the revised guidelines on the GCTA, the Secretary, and they have adopted a lot of the findings of the committee. And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the Minority Leader was one of those who remarked that that Republic Act on the Good Conduct Allowances or the Good Conduct Time Allowances law should not apply to heinous crimes. So they put that in the guidelines, Your Honor. That's one of the major results of our work here. Yeah.
Very good, sir. But other than the application of the Good Conduct Time Allowance law, we heard in the open hearing about the shenanigans there, including hospital stays for sale, bribery taking all over the place, drugs, prohibited drugs being smuggled, kubos, which, or kubo bang tawag doon? Kubol, which looks like, which can compete with five-star hotels.
Yes, Your Honor, we remember that, and
Yes.
these are a few of what the Secretary mentions they have been doing in the department. Yung binanggit niyo pong mga kubol, dinemolish na rin daw ho yun. They've demolished
Lahat
those.
ba na kubol demolish or only some?
Lahat po sa maximum security dinemolish na ho.
So wala nang kubol doon.
Wala na po.
Sige.
Doon naman po sa mga hospital visits na overly lenient dati, masyadong lenient yung pagbigay ng mga passes sa hospital. They've tightened up those and ensure that those who leave are really those who need medical treatment, Your Honor. Tapos yung, according to the Secretary, they've also moved some key personnel around para, yesterday, we were talking about regulatory capture. Baka meron na rin po dyan. So, iniikot-ikot na rin po yung mga tauhan doon.
Matagal na yung mayroon diyang sinasabing anong brand ng Toyota?
The new head.
Meron ho dyan ang tawag sa grupo nila yung brand ng kotse. Innovable. Innovable. Would you...
Innova Boys.
Innovable. Instead of immovable, they are called innovable. Why? Because they are permanently assigned to certain positions as a money-making proposition. That's why they're including Innova as gifts to these people. That is why they are called innovable.
Your Honor.
Would we know if action has been taken here? Assuming that it's a verified...
Pinalitan na daw ho yung mga dati. At itong bagong pinuno po ng Bucor, si Mr. Bantag, Director General Bantag, has brought in personnel from the BJMP where he came from, Your Honor.
Pinalitan yung mga tao, hindi yung kotse.
Avanza na daw ho, Avanza. Avanza na daw ho. I'm just
Baka
kidding, Your Honor.
naging cruiser, Land Cruiser, may problema tayo. Anyway, we're just bringing this out again to know...
Pang senador lang daw ho yung Land Cruiser.
Okay. So this issue has also been addressed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, again, another aspect that was brought up during the course of these hearings is the manner in which surveillance cameras are being tampered with, so that the purpose of these cameras are defeated. There was a proposal from, was it Mayor Magalong or one of the CIDG people, who said there is technology today that will allow the operators of these machines to have a clear picture and a face recognition in order to make the security more secure. It required some budget. I don't recall how much, but two questions. How much was the proposed budget? And number two, is this budget in the committee report?
Your Honor, there is a proposal from the DOJ, and it's included in the 2020 budget proposal to improve the equipment of the Bucor. And in fact, the committee asked the department among their needs, and one of those was the needs you were mentioning, Your Honor. So we added 100 million actually
Okay, good.
to the budget of the Bucor.
So we can look forward to a better security apparatus insofar as the Bucor is concerned.
Yes, Your Honor, better security apparatus, not better cars, Your Honor.
All right. Next topic. There has been discussion about a regionalization of our prison system, led by our Senate President, that we must regionalize our prison system, free that 300 or so hectares of a very valuable asset of this government, because today I think we can rightfully claim that we have the most expensive real estate being used as a detention facility. May we know what is the status of that study?
The DOJ, in collaboration with the Bucor, Your Honor, is still studying the matter, Your Honor.
Hindi naman siguro-
They mentioned that there's a lot of legal issues involved, Your Honor.
Can we have a sampling of these legal issues?
Your Honor, I was told by the Secretary that the property where Bilibid is now is actually a donation. Similar to, I think, to Kamkram, if I'm not mistaken, Your Honor. And there is a stipulation in the donation that it must be exclusively used for the purpose of serving as a penitentiary, Your Honor. So they have to study if it is moved and devoted to another purpose. What is the implication on the original donation, Your Honor?
Okay, well, it has been there since time immemorial. I do hope that, but as a matter of policy, would the Secretary agree that we should move the penitentiary to another location, probably regionalize them, as a matter of policy, for the record?
The Secretary gives us the assurance that he's very flexible.
Sorry?
Whatever. He's very flexible in this regard, Your Honor.
No, we are asking what is the policy, as a matter of policy, if the Secretary and the hierarchy or the officialdom of the Department of Justice would agree that we should have a regionalized prison system.
They agree, Your Honor, with that policy.
Yeah.
He agrees with that policy.
So should there be a time frame for this? Because this has been discussed, budget in and budget out. There are proposals that certain military camps, for example, in Nueva Ecija, which is quite extensive,
Yeah.
can be used as our prison system for the north, et cetera, et cetera.
The Secretary assures us that by second half of next year, they will have the study will be finalized, Your Honor. Will be finished.
So when we hear again the budget next year, that's the second half of next year, we should have a definite plan on this.
Yes, sometime in the second half, Your Honor.
Because I cannot, the plan is very rational. You will free an asset which is so valuable and will spur development in that, at least in that part of Manila. It will decongest Manila. It will earn revenues for government. And insofar as social reintegration and family support is concerned, the regional prison houses would go a long way to serve this purpose, because it would be easier for the families of these detained persons to be visited by their families. Eh, ngayon po, kung ikaw taga Iloilo, hirap na hirap kang magbisita. Mamamasahe po tayo para makabisita sa kanilang mga kamag-anak. So I do hope that, okay, we take the word of the Secretary that it is being processed, and we are hoping and that we have on record the commitment of the Secretary that in 1 year's time, a complete plan will be submitted, and whatever required authorities or whatever required authority from Congress, we can assure you, Mr. Secretary, that the Senate President and I will be there to support because of the need to have this regionalized our prison system. Mr. President, may I ask that we recognize the Senate President?
The Senate President is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the gentleman from Iloilo, our minority leader. May we ask them for a copy of the deed of donation? First of all, I concur with everything that the minority leader has said, and perhaps it would be best if the Senate would be able to look into that also, because there was a larger portion already that was disposed.
Yeah.
And it did not violate any type of deed of donation that they're talking about. So can we have a copy, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes, just for purposes of record, full disclosure, when we were Secretary of Justice, we cut out a certain portion for housing of the Judiciary and of the Department, and this representation purchased a portion there, which was offered to everyone, and it's now called Katarungan Village. So just for purposes of full disclosure.
Thank you, Your Honor. And they will submit for the Senate President's request, and the Minority Leader's assertions are well taken, Your Honor.
Yes. Would the gentleman sponsor confirm that in the current General Appropriations Act, there is a 1 billion peso allocation for the construction, rehabilitation of regional prison facilities in Palawan, Davao, Leyte, Zamboanga, and the correctional facilities for women?
Yes, Your Honor.
There is such an item.
Yes, Your Honor.
And how extensive has these prison houses or detention places been rehabilitated by virtue of the budget? Napaayos ba natin ang mga ito? And the reason why, again, I'm interested in this, because this could form these present correctional facilities could form the nucleus for regionalization. For example, Palawan, Davao, they are presently already used as prison facilities. An improvement of pursuant to the allocation that we made, 1 billion pesos, could be the starting point for the regionalization of our prison system and decongest our Muntinlupa penitentiary.
They've requested the SARO from the DBM, Your Honor, to release the money for this, Your Honor.
So there's been no SARO?
Wala pang release, ho.
We are already about to end.
That's why we need to extend the budget, Your Honor.
My goodness. You have 632 pending appointments for the National Prosecution Service, which has not been signed. You have 1 billion allocated for the prison system. No SARO. Is this an indication of the support that the administration has for our justice system?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Might be an oversight. We don't really know, but could be a cash management issue. I don't want to venture a guess, Your Honor.
Yes, very politically correct as a response.
Thank you, Mr. President.
That doesn't solve our problem.
Yes, Your Honor. But the suggestions are well taken, and perhaps when the money is released, the Secretary can ask the Bucor, suggest to the Bucor that they implement these capital outlays or rehabilitation in a way that, in preparation for, as you suggested, for the regionalization. Anyway, the Secretary has already said that he supports the policy, Your Honor.
Okay, can we have a, we don't want to delay the budget. I'll be the first to have the budget of the DOJ approved for 2020. But as we now are winding the debates on the budget, may we have a report on these two items before the year is over?
Of course. Yes, certainly, Your Honor.
The release of the 1 billion.
Yes.
And the appointment of 632.
And we'll give you the figures on the RTCs also, Your Honor, and the
And
courts.
the RTC,
Yes, those three.
what
yeah.
is the ideal number, and the 720 applications being processed.
Yes, Your Honor.
As I said, we don't want to delay this. What is this? What is this?
720, 633, Your Honor. 633, I think, is the number of positions awaiting appointment.
1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session suspended.
Ano ito? Yeah, tama. Prosecution. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
So we hope that we can have that data, that report.
Your Honor, with your indulgence, may I offer a fact as to the delay in the release? It's pertinent to the delay
Yes,
in the
please,
release of the
please.
1 billion, Your Honor, if I may.
Yes, please.
Your Honor, the previous Bucor head, we are told, wanted to transfer the funds to Sablayan. That's to Sablayan, Mindoro. And he
Why,
wanted
is
the
he
1
from-
billion
is he
item.
Is he from Mindoro and then what?
I have no idea, Your Honor. Yes, he
Anyway.
is. Yes, he is, Your Honor.
So, I'm sorry, sorry to
He
interrupt.
is, Your Honor.
He is from
Yes, Your Honor.
I didn't know. Who is this?
In fact, there's a letter to the Director General Faldon, former Director General Faldon. He
What?
even wrote the committee asking for the realignment, but we told him it's not proper for the committee to do that, Your Honor, because it's already part of the general. It's a line item in the General Appropriations Act, and to realign that item, you would need an amendment of the law. That was our response, Your Honor.
So, the then Bucor chief, Mr. Faildon, who is from Mindoro,
Yes, Your Honor.
asked for the realignment of the capital outlay for Palawan, Davao, Leyte, Zamboanga, and the correctional facility for
Yes, Your
women.
Honor. And I was told that's the reason why the 1 billion was not released right away.
That
It
we
delayed the
wanted
release.
it to be realigned to Mindoro,
Sablayan, Mindoro. Your Honor.
Sablayan, Mindoro,
Yeah.
his home province.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
That's terrible. And this is the reason why the release of 1 billion was delayed.
Yes, I am told that information, Your Honor.
May we request, therefore, the incumbent Secretary of Justice to officially withdraw this letter, which is totally improper. As a matter of policy set by Congress, the 1 billion is allocated to Palawan, Davao, Leyte, Zamboanga, and the Correctional Institute for Women. This Bucor, former Bucor chief, Mr. Paildon, has absolutely no business asking for a realignment, and it's totally uncalled for because that is the policy set by Congress, and a bureau director has no business attempting to realign these funds to his home province.
Yes, Your Honor, we agree, and perhaps he was given some faulty legal advice, so the Secretary pledges that he will ask for the release of that and implement it the way Congress intended, Your
Yes, please, because, well, of course, I think we just passed the bill sponsored by the good chairman that we will extend the
That's right,
validity
Your Honor. So
of the
that gives them some breathing room to implement these reforms, Your Honor.
we just approved on second reading just
Yes,
this
thank you for
morning.
that, Your Honor. Thank you.
The extension of the capital outlay
That's
for
correct,
this
yeah.
year, extended up to December 31 of next year. So that gives the Secretary some breathing room in order to work on the release of this 1 billion and funds to implement the policy decision of Congress to rehabilitate our detention facilities in Palawan, Davao, Leyte, Zamboanga, and the Correctional Institute for Correctional Facilities for Women. Can we see that document, official document addressed to the Department of Budget as among those that we expect
Yes,
to
sure.
receive?
No problem, Your Honor.
All right. Another issue on the Bureau of Corrections is the matter of the confused lines of jurisdiction over our detention system. We have a national believed penitentiary under the supervision of the Bureau of Correction. You have the city jails under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, BJMP, of the Department of Interior and Local Governments. You have provincial jails under the jurisdiction of the provincial government. Do you find this, Mr. Sponsor, a consistent with the proper management of our penal system?
I'm sorry, I was trying to make
Yes.
sense of it. You're right. It's quite. It's not the most simple or straightforward system, Your Honor. You know, if you're the detention prisoner, then you're in the city or municipal jail. If your penalty is more than 3 years, then you're in Bucor once you've been convicted. If your penalty is 6 months and 1 day to 3 years, you're in the provincial jail.
Confusing.
If your penalty is 6 months and below, then you're with the BJMP. So it's quite. So what was the question, Your Honor? Is it convoluted? Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Question, what steps have we undertaken to correct this incongruity? Has the Secretary suggested any legislation which will correct this situation which we all agree is contrary to all principles of good management?
They'll study it, Your Honor, and he agrees that a more integrated system is probably better, Your Honor.
Because one of the results of this is you do not even have a uniform carpeta. So you do not know what the record of a detention prisoner is. That is why you have cases like Antonio Sanchez, who we sent to jail during our time, trying to assert that he has completed his service of sentence, and it was a debate as to whether he has done so because of the lack of consistency in the record keeping
Yes, Your Honor.
of the different detention places, and this lack of consistency is because they are these our three detention centers, major ones, are managed by 3 different agencies.
Who's involved? Yeah.
All right.
Your Honor, you're correct, and the DOJ mentions that they have this project in the works, the single carpeta system. You referred to multiple carpetas, one with the local jails, one with the detention prisoners, and the others with the DOJ. They're moving towards a single carpeta system, and they have a MOA signing on December 3 for all the applicable agencies, Your Honor.
Very good. That's a small step to integrating the management of. I'm sorry. That's a giant step in integrating the system in our detention, in our penal system, because that has never been done before. You will be surprised that in some jails in the outside of Manila, the prison officials do not even understand what a carpeta is, when it just refers to a simple record, and but it's very important for
Your Honor.
purposes of determining whether a person deprived of liberty has complied with the conditions under our good conduct time allowance. Very important.
We agree, Your Honor. It's very important.
So, good. Again, can we request for a copy of that memorandum of agreement, which will be signed on December 3 as soon as it is signed?
Yes, Your Honor. We'll add it to the earlier requirements.
Now, what about legislation which will correct the lines of management and authority of this 3 penal system? Is that something that the Secretary agrees to be should be corrected? This requires legislation.
Your Honor, there is a bill pending in the Justice Committee. Is it Justice? Yeah, Justice. There's Senate Bill 181, an act instituting a unified corrections and jail management system, integrating the national prisons and penal farms, and the provincial, sub-provincial, city, district, and municipal jails, establishing for the purpose the National Commission on Corrections and Jail Management, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. The author is Senator De Lima.
Okay, so it's pending for the Committee on Justice.
That's right, Mr. President.
Yeah, and the Committee on Justice is headed by
The hardworking, favorite senator of the minority leader, Your Honor.
the favorite senator of the minority leader is the chairman of the Committee on Finance, because he is the one who approves our request for amendment in the budget.
Thank
But-
you, Your Honor.
Anyway, so
There's
it is
also a
fairly-
House version of that bill, Your Honor.
There is a House version of
Yes,
it.
Your Honor.
May we ask the Secretary, as being the one in the front line of this, to make the appropriate push in the House of Representatives, and also here in the Senate will help have this approved by the
You're also the favorite senator of the chairman of the Justice Committee, Your Honor. So you could recommend to him. Your Honor.
he's also, last night he was also
Yeah, he's-
the favorite of the President.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Sponsor, where is the chairman of the Justice Committee?
Do you really want to know, Your Honor? Mr. President.
Please proceed.
The Secretary of Justice should pray that the chairman of the Justice Committee would not attend his budget hearing because hindi natin matatapos ito. Okay, let us go now to the issue of the congestion in our jails. The COA, in its report of 2018 of for the BGMP, noted the overpopulation of jails by over 440%. In other words, if there are for every 100 capacity, 440 are there in BJMP. And BJMP would have jurisdiction over city jails, which would have detention prisoners. And that is why, again, I relate this to the vacancies that we have. Because as long as the cases are pending, nagiging detention prisoners po sila. Kaya we authored a law that would allow the detention prisoners to be released once the maximum of their sentence, assuming that they are convicted, has already been served as detention prisoner.
Yes, Your Honor. It's a
So
good
that
idea.
we could decongest. But having mentioned the BJMP, we see prisoners sleeping like, a horse, standing up. Wala pong higaan. Ngayon, doon po sa atin sa Bureau of Correction, what is the situation?
Sa Bucor, there's also congestion, Your Honor. There's a congestion rate, according to Bucor, of 285%.
200, in other words, almost
Triple capacity.
sorry?
That-
Triple
I-
the
I- That's my
capacity.
interpretation. It's almost triple capacity.
That's
Your Honor.
correct. So really, again, this is a serious problem. I am sure that the International Committee of the Red Cross, of which Senator Gordon is the president on the Philippine chapter, would consider this a violation of human rights and a violation of the dignity of a human being. When you sleep standing up like a horse, hindi po tama. So what are the plans insofar as our Department of Justice is concerned to address this congestion where for every 100 person capacity, we have 300 people?
Your Honor, two things that they're doing is, one is, as you mentioned, they are studying the prisoners who have already, even if they're detention prisoners, if they have already served the maximum imposable sentence, then to release them immediately. That would
No, but
decongest.
Muntinlupa, the Department of Justice would have no jurisdiction over detention prisoners. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman. The Muntinlupa and the BG and the correction, Bureau of Correction is for finally convicted prisoners.
That's correct.
In
Maybe
so-
we can mention that in the DILG because they're the next budget, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sa BJMP.
Okay. But nevertheless, there is also congestion in the National Bilibid Penitentiary and the other penitentiaries managed by the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Correction. You mentioned that it's triple the capacity
Yes, Your
of this detention.
But there are also prisoners, Your Honor, who are not detention prisoners. For those ones, then they have jurisdiction. For those who are serving sentences convicted by final judgment and they have already served their maximum imposable sentence, pwede nang i-release yun. Kasi minsan, nandun pa rin sa kulungan, na-serve na po in full yung sentence niya.
We are assured that the releases of these prisoners who are entitled to be released are being done on time.
Yes, Your Honor. And the second, mentioned by the Secretary, is for the more crowded institutions, for them to move some of the inmates there to the less crowded institutions, Your Honor.
Talking about that, there was so much fuss and news and concern about detention, about finally convicted prisoners under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Correction who were released either maliciously or through negligence or for a profit. Prisoners who were released without when the CGTA was wrongly applied. I said either maliciously or through negligence. If I recall the number correctly, there were about 1,900. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Approximately 1,900. The president threatened to shoot all of them. How many returned?
2,300 returned, Your Honor.
Are you serious, sir? There were more.
Yes, Your Honor, the Secretary is serious, Your Honor.
Do you mean?
Sumobra ho, sumobra. Pati yung hindi kailangan bumalik, bumalik ho.
Ang hindi kailangan bumalik.
Opo, opo.
So what?
Baka mas maganda yung libre daw yung pagkain ho, Your Honor.
You know, the beauty about these budget hearings is that you discover a lot of things. So what did you do with those who returned what were not wanted in the Bilibid Penitentiary?
Siyempre yung hindi naman pinapabalik ho, pinalahay, or sinabihan na hindi naman kailangan bumalik ho.
Okay. How many, talking about that, the Bureau of Corrections would keep a record of the escapees. How many escapees do we have on average on an annual basis? Huwag niyong sabihin na walang nakakawala dyan, hindi ako maniniwala.
Temporary escape lang daw ang nangyayari.
Because they die afterwards. Hindi
No,
naman.
I'm just kidding, Your Honor. And we're waiting for the data, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, the figure here given to us is that there are 11 escapees, Your Honor, as of August 2019.
Sorry?
11 escapees.
11 escapees. We would not know how many are still alive. Anyway.
We don't have that data. Your Honor.
We have, at this point, let me thank the good sponsor, and the Secretary of Justice for responding to many of the number of our concerns and policy issues which must be resolved. Will support the Department of Justice in its effort to uphold the rule of law in our system. So with that, let me thank the good sponsor and the Secretary of Justice, and we terminate our availment of the period of interpretation.
Thank
Mr.
you
President.
to the distinguished Minority Leader. Thank you, Ho.
Majority Leader, Senate President is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to ask for an update concerning an issue that's being bruited about by some media personalities, and they have been pestering me with this issue, so I'd rather ask it already and ask for an update, and then we'll ask to recognize Senator Tolentino for some questions. This is regarding issues or update from the NBI and the PCGG. They're both under the DOJ, right? There was a standing warrant of arrest by the Senate for the former commissioner of COMELEC, Andy Bautista. And then there was also, I think, a recommendation by the PCGG to the NBI through Attorney Mini Retral to investigate the charges against Andy Bautista and some other personalities. So we'd just like to ask for an update because some media personalities are asking us, and there was also a complaint already filed with the Ombudsman against them. So may we have an update? Because in the Facebook is bragging that they found Andy Bautista, but the NBI cannot find him. Anyway, you can just submit to us. We just want to make sure that some of the issues being raised by media personalities are addressed by the
Yes, Your
Department of
Honor.
Justice, and that the Senate has taken it up. No?
That's well taken, Your Honor. They said he's really in the U.S. and they're studying the next moves, Your Honor.
Okay, so the PCG is no, the NBI is aware of
NBI
this.
is aware, Your
and
Honor.
The PCG
The
is
NBI
already
is aware.
completely done. All right. That's all. We just want to have an update and submit to us, no? And then,
And the PCGG, Your Honor, is telling us that the Ombudsman is already asking for documents from the PCGG.
okay.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's the progress.
May we recognize Senator Francis Tolentino, please?
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. President.
Tolentino is recognized.
Before Senator Tolentino, may I just make a manifestation with the indulgence of Senator Tolentino, Your Honor? This is regarding Vice Chair Joel Villanueva's issue. He would like to get the commitment of the Bureau of Immigration that they will issue more stringent guidelines in issuing special working permits, and that they will provide a clearer process on how it vets the representations made by SWP applicants. And the BI has agreed, and they commit to issue clearer guidelines and clearer processes on how it vets the applications of SWPs. Just for the record, to satisfy the concern of our colleague, Your Honor. That's all, Your Honor, and we're ready to take the questions of distinguished lawyer, gentleman from Cavite.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Tolentino.
President.
Kickboxing aficionado.
President of Kickboxing. Mr. President, this is not a query. I will not be asking my senior fraternity brother, the Honorable Solicitor General, relative to the statements that he made that current POGO operators cannot be taxed.
He will invoke seniority, sabi niya.
And and including POGO workers cannot be taxed because apparently this runs counter to the current policy of the administration that we generate more revenue, and it is again against the opinion of the Department of Finance and our most senior fraternity Brad, the Commissioner of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, that POGO workers and POGO operators can be taxed under the National Internal Revenue Code because there is a situs of income. And then there is now, Mr. President, a current bill passed by the House taxing POGOs 5% for franchise taxes and 25% for the workers. So I will not be asking the Honorable Solicitor General relative to those information I just mentioned. But I'll be direct to the point. The minority floor leader a while ago mentioned 1,352 vacancies unfilled by the Department of Justice. And this is correct, Mr. President. The Honorable Sponsor confirmed this. 1,352 vacancies.
That's correct, Your Honor. And on the matter of the opinion, the OSG issued a clarification yesterday that they were only speaking about the foreign-based POGOs and with respect to the income outside the Philippines, Your Honor. But the moment they operate within the Philippines, they clarified that there is no disagreement between them and the revenue authorities with respect to the taxability of these entities, Your Honor.
Noted, Your Honor. But relative to the query of the good minority leader a while ago, and I agree with him, it seems to be to me that 1,352 is a huge unfilled plethora of vacant positions. My suggestion, and this is probably a policy personnel internal matter for the DOJ Secretary to consider, is that we are aware that one prisoner dies every day inside the Bilibid, every day. And there are only 13 physicians attending to the 47,326 prisoners in Bucor 7 penal colonies. In Bilibid, Muntinlupa alone, there are only 4 doctors. Ito po yung gusto kong itumbok, Mr. President. Under current civil service rules, you are allowed to change nomenclature but approved by the Civil Service Commission. So you can fill up medical positions coming from the vacant 1,352. If that's a lawyer position, you can change the nomenclature, secure the approval of the Civil Service Commission, and have more doctors. Am I correct, Mr. Sponsor?
Yes, Your Honor.
So my suggestion is that the DOJ comply with the Geneva Convention of 1955, producing more medical attendants for prisoners by filling up the vacant positions even if they're not for plantilla medical positions. Do you subscribe to that proposition, Mr. Sponsor?
It is possible, Your Honor, but the vacancy for the prosecutor would still remain, Your Honor, and they would still have to fill that up eventually.
Yes, but my concern, Mr. President,
It is feasible, Your Honor. It is feasible.
is that we attend likewise to the prisoners dying every day. And we have one prisoner dying every day. At the end of the year, we will have 365 prisoners. That's probably one way of decongesting the jail system. But we have to have more medical attendants, Mr.
I agree, Your Honor.
Mr.
It's
President.
the humane thing to do, Your Honor.
The next item, Mr. President, is the apparent big cut, and I support the National Bureau of Investigation. I support the DOJ, the big cut in the budget of the Crime Detection and Investigation Program under the NBI. Previously, although they have a very low disbursement rate, only 87% was obligated, the big amount removed from this very crucial unit of the NBI probably should not just be justified, but the cut should be restored, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. President.
We'll take a look at that and we'll accept or will seriously study whatever proposal the gentleman has. But for the record, the committee increased the overall budget of the NBI by 69 million, Your Honor.
Because for the information of the sponsor, I think is familiar with this, this is the unit that works in tandem with the PNP CIDG to track down investment scammers. And my previous bills and resolutions concerning cryptocurrency, which probably be FUD next year, this unit will be the one tracking those scammers also, Mr. President.
That's a very urgent concern, Your Honor.
So dapat po siguro madagdag. And finally, Mr. President, there is a child protection program. There is a committee handling this, the Committee for the Special Protection of Children, chaired by the Honorable Secretary of Justice himself. And the budget is only 1 million, Mr. President. Perhaps the good sponsor can add some more. Kawawa naman ito. This is pursuant to Republic Act 7610, child-related criminal laws. Dapat po siguro madagdagan ng konti itong Committee for the Special Protection of Children mandated by Republic Act 7610, Mr. President.
Your Honor, that item, I think you're right. We have to increase that. But for the record, we also increased the fund of the Office of the Secretary for against trafficking, the IACAT, the Confidential Fund of the Interagency Council against trafficking, Your Honor. But again, we're
But not
open
for
to
children,
we're open
Mr.
for
President.
your any proposals, Your Honor.
So siguro po walang ma-accomplish masyado ito sa 1,000,029 budget for one
At dagdagan po
fiscal year.
natin under your leadership, Your Honor.
Alam ko pong mabait po ang ating sponsor at ito po ay papayagay. Wala na po akong tanong, Mr. President.
Mas
I'd
mas
like to
mabait po yung
thank the
gentleman
judge.
from Cavite. Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Tolentino, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. President, just a few
Senator Marcos is
manifestations.
recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This regards the National Bureau of Investigation. It's ironic that both the PNP and the AFP are almost entirely reliant upon the NBI for investigations, particularly in the cyber area, as mentioned earlier. However, while both the PNP and the AFP have doubled in their salary, and despite the fact that RA 10867 indicates that the NBI is in dire need of reorganization and modernization, there does not seem to have been much progress in that area, both with salaries and personnel, as well as material, logistics, equipment, and even the building that is in very sorry state. May I just request information for any updates there, and perhaps a prayer to the chairman of the Committee on Finance to increase the budget of the NBI.
Actually, we've augmented it, Your Honor, by 69 million. And the list of augmentations came from them. We asked them what they needed, Your Honor.
Okay, so I think despite the 69 million, the Reorganization and Modernization Act is a very thoroughgoing act, and we should probably put something as well in the unprogrammed.
It's a good suggestion, Your Honor. It's a good
in
suggestion.
the unprogrammed area, because they're really falling far behind.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The other area would be the PAO, where despite the number of applicants today for the PAO positions, many courts do not have a PAO lawyer, and one PAO lawyer goes to 2 or 3 courts. Perhaps that is also an area that we can look into, given the interest today of law graduates to join the PAO.
Yes, I was just conferring with the head of the PAO, Attorney Acosta, and she said that by December, mag-oath daw sa kanila yung over 200 lawyers, Your Honor.
Kapag nangyari yon, lahat ng korte meron ng isang PAO.
Yes, Your Honor.
Wala nang double
Opo,
up.
opo.
Sige. Ayun. At siguro yung huli na lamang, nung GCTA investigation, nakita natin na yung record keeping sa Bucor at saka Parole and Probation Administration, napakagulo. Madalas na sinasabi that persons deprived of liberty have already served their time but remain in custody, and they have no idea that, in fact, they had served the sentence for the crime they committed. This is clearly a violation of the right to liberty, and may we urge both the Bucor and the Parole and Probation to take very seriously record keeping,
Yes, Your
not
Honor.
only to do with the GCTA, but more importantly, with the rest who are also deprived of their liberty.
A very good
Thank you.
suggestion, Your Honor. Before you came in, we were talking about it with Minority Leader Drilon regarding the single carpeta is one of the reforms to address
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Your
I
Honor.
think there are a number of others, given our digital access these days and the many technologies available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Marcos. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, no other member wishes to interpolate the budget of the Department of Justice. I move that that the budget of the Department of Justice, Office of the Secretary, Bureau of Corrections, Bureau of Immigrations, Land Registration Authority, National Bureau of Investigation, Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, Office of the Solicitor General, Parole Probation Administration, Presidential Commission on Good Government, and the Public Attorney's Office be deemed submitted. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
May we ask for a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session suspended.
Congratulations. Lunch? Ha? Ay, di ko alam.
Lunch? Lunch break? DOTR. Congress, tapusin na natin yung Congress.
Tapusin mo yun.
All the small ones.
Kaya nga, so ito,
Tapusin yung Congress. Mr. President,
Session is resumed.
thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before we suspend for lunch, would the body be willing to take up one last budget, which is the budget of the Congress of the Philippines? Mr. President, I don't think
Please
anybody
proceed.
will ask questions on that.
Please
So, Mr.
proceed.
President, I move that we take up the budget of the Congress of the Philippines.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
May we ask for a 1-minute suspension to allow the chairperson of the subcommittee to enter together with the members of the
Session is suspended.
agencies. why he had another meeting. A meeting. Meeting.
It's a very good meeting last night.
Bisaya ako meeting. Lover boys.
Yeah.
Ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we take up the budget of the Congress of the Philippines, in particular the Senate, Senate Electoral Tribunal, Commission on Appointments, House of Representatives, and House Electoral Tribunal.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion's approved.
Mr. President, actually, no member wishes to interpolate the budget of these agencies, being that these are our budgets. But for the record, Mr. President, we had discussed yesterday with Senator Ping Lacson and the Senate President, together with Senator, our presiding officer, Senate President Pro Tem, that we need to enhance the budget of the Senate a little bit, slightly, because of additional expenses for coming 2020, Mr. President. And also for the continued construction of our new building as well, Mr. President.
Yes, that is correct.
And I think the discussions will be in the period of amendments.
Yes, at the appropriate time, we will make the
Yes.
suggested amendments to the budget of the Senate of the Philippines.
Yes, Mr. President. With that, we move that, may we recognize Senator Gatchalian to give the amount before we move. Very excited they are on our budget, Mr. President.
Senator Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Di ko pa na-sponsor majority floor.
Approved na.
Mr.
May
President,
increase pa.
May increase pa.
wala pang sponsor, may increase na.
Baka pag sinonsor mo, ma-decrease yan.
Mr. President, I'm pleased to sponsor the budget of the Congress of the Philippines as follows. The Senate of the Philippines amounting to 7.4 billion pesos. the Senate Electoral Tribunal amounting to 292.7 million pesos, the Commission on Appointments amounting to 817.8 million pesos, the House of Representatives amounting to 14.05 billion pesos, the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal amounting to 216.5 million pesos, Mr. President. I so move, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I don't want to keep our chairman of the subcommittee waiting too long. He had a long night. I believe it was his anniversary. So he was working overtime, Mr. President. From here, he went other places. With that, Mr. President,
Where was the date yesterday of our hottest bachelor?
Mr. President, that's confidential. But rest assured, I seek consultation with the good Senate Pro Tempore, Mr. President, the expert in dating, Mr. President.
As long as his girlfriend is aware where he is yesterday, Mr. President, I have no problem.
although, Mr. President, the Senate President earlier had a question that I could none of us could answer. Because according to Senator Angara, it was his anniversary last night, and the Senate President said, how many girlfriends does he have? Because he also had an anniversary last week. Anyway, he does not need to answer that, Mr. President. He might incriminate himself. Mr. President, with that, I move that the budgets of the Congress of the Philippines, the Senate, Senate Electoral Tribunal, Commission on Appointments, House of Representatives, and House Electoral Tribunal be deemed submitted and approved, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion's approved.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend session for a lunch break to allow our staff and the Secretariat to have the lunch till 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Session suspended till 2 p.m. this afternoon. Thank you.